And we're live. Good morning, Marius. How are you?
I am good, thank you. How about you?
Uh, yeah, I'm good. You're a bit of a shadow in the screen, but it has a good reason. Where are you? Where are you currently at?
Yeah, so I'm actually enjoying my summer almost holiday. So it's almost weekend. So I'm at my summer cabin with the nice view of the fjords of Oslo. So it's like 40 minutes outside Oslo, and today it's bright and sunny. So seems to be a nice weekend ahead.
Cool. And you're planning on doing some surfing or sailing or water activities?
Yeah, actually, it will definitely be some few hours outside in the boat. Hopefully, yeah, absolutely.
Very nice, Marius. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I know you a little bit, but I think the audio audience doesn't. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, so my name is Marius Holmsen, and as I told, I'm based out of Oslo, Norway, and my role in Nutanix is Network and Security Solutions Architect for North and Eastern Europe, and which means that my main responsibilities are networking within AHV and also the integration partners we have in terms of networking, which includes the likes of Cisco, Arista, Juniper, all of those. And in addition to that, I also do a lot with the security solution with Nutanix Flow and the integration partners, which obviously is Palo Alto, but also includes Checkpoint, Fortinet, SonicWall, and Juniper SRX.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. And you mentioned Palo Alto, and that's the reason you're here today, because you're a subject matter expert, and my knowledge of networking and security in AHV is very limited. So we invited you, but we also invited Patrick de Jong for Palo Alto. So let me ask Patrick to join us. Good morning, Patrick.
Hey, good morning, Matthijs and Marius. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
And yourself?
Also very good. Although we are still in the times of sort of lockdown, that we are not on customer sites that much yet, but still doing fine. Working from home is going actually very well. And I did visit already some customers actually in Luxembourg last week. So on the road a little bit and doing a lot of work from home, but going fine.
Feels good, right, to be on the road again?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, working from home is going great, and not having all the travel does save a lot of time, makes more efficient. On the other hand, sometimes being away from the desk and in the car is a nice moment to relax and make some calls, etc. So it was nice having that again a bit.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the frustration of being in the car is now kind of like a blessing. You have some time for yourself, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. All right. Thank you very much for joining us today, Patrick. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? What do you do at Palo Alto?
Yeah, so let me, because some people might know me from the past, some might not. So let me share a little bit of my background. I started at Palo Alto Networks more than 8 years ago, when Palo Alto Networks was just starting up in the Netherlands shortly at that moment. At that time, I joined as an SE for the finance team in Benelux. So being the sales engineer, systems engineer for all the banks and financial institutions. After approximately 6 to 7 years being the SE in the finance market, I made a short move into our CBC because there was a need for some technical assistance in building the customer briefing center, where we invite our customers, brief the customers, etc. And I was working there on content, on agendas, settings, and those things. And very recently, let's say a bit more than a month ago, well, the application was before that, but some people might know Mike Remmerswal, who's been the SE manager for the Benelux team in the past 4 years. He stepped up as being the NER director of SE, so he has a broader role now, which gave an opportunity for me to apply for his position in the Benelux organization. So it took a few months after the application, but I was very happy to be able to share that. As of that time, actually now 5 weeks, I'm the SE manager for the Benelux area, and I'm having at the moment 15 SEs working in the Benelux area.
That's a nice step up for you, Patrick. Congrats on that.
Very nice. But I have to say, I was of course already very well known in that organization. I know all the people, so the move, the work I do is different than from before. But actually, the people I all know by person for a long time already, so that makes it a lot easier, right? So
very good, very good. All right, thank you for joining us today, and we're going to do a little bit introduction into Nutanix. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction into Palo Alto, and we're going to look at a live demo of the joint solution today. So Marius, I would like to ask you to kick it off and do a little bit of an introduction on Nutanix Flow as the underlying framework where Palo Alto plugs in, and then we'll move to Patrick to show a little bit about Palo Alto, the broader ecosystem, and then specifically tailing it down to the Nutanix integrations. All right, if you can put up your screen, then I'll make sure I'll put it in the broadcast.
Here we go. So hopefully now you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can. Very good.
Perfect.
All right. So we discussed not being in presenter mode. Fortunately, we're having some issues there, but this is the best alternative. And very good to see.
Yes.
Yes.
So okay, thank you. So briefly, right, what we're trying to do with microsegmentation is that we basically remove ourselves from the underlying infrastructure. So in a more traditional firewall setup, you would have a firewall that basically is like a perimeter firewall that inspects traffic from the outside to the inside, from between different security zones. And what we have, over the last few years discovered is that this doesn't really, suffice as the total security solution, because most of the attacks today relies on lateral movement, which means that they are able to attack or penetrate a weak system, and then they can move laterally from side to side inside the data center. And so what we had, unfortunately, my slides are animated, but the animation doesn't work now. So anyway, what we are trying to solve with microsegmentation and Nutanix Flow is to minimize the attack surface, to remove the possibility for the lateral movement, which means that we are basically able to protect every virtual machine from every other virtual machine. And when I usually try to explain why this is so needed in today's environment, is because of the data center itself is really changing, right? The previous network perimeter is more or less disappearing. We see more and more customers now move things between the public cloud and the private cloud, which means that the network perimeter is disappearing. We also realize that we need more automation. The nature of DevOps and the way we deploy application these days means that there is no longer it's no longer good enough to use 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to deploy applications. We need to be able to rapidly create security policies. And we also see that most of the traffic today, the traffic patterns within the data center are east-west, which means that we need a new way of deploying security policies. And by using microsegmentation, we are able to have what we call security enforcement everywhere, because the security enforcement happens inside each AHV hypervisor node. So if you have 3 servers and you add by an additional couple of servers, hypervisor nodes, you also increase your security because your firewall is distributed on every host. It also means that by decoupling the reliance to the physical infrastructure, we're also able to move away from what we call the static and manual security policy to an automated centralized policy. And I will try to show you this in the lab afterwards, but basically it means that if I can specify groupings, I can basically specify that the virtual machine belongs to production environment, to application A, and is a web server. Those categories, those tags that are assigned to the virtual machine also makes it get the right security policies. So there's no need for me to go into a physical firewall and add an IP address, because basically I just specify to the virtual machine itself that what is the role of this virtual machine, and then we can automate the security policies for this virtual machine. And by moving away from the traditional security to what we call microsegmentation, it means that now we can have security enforcement everywhere, right? And we can automate those, and we can also, instead of having the security policies tied to VLANs and IP addresses, we can now tie them to applications, right? And basically create an application framework that also pushes down the security policies. And I will try to show this, or I will demonstrate this later in the lab. But the main benefit,
Marius?
and the main, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, can we tie them? You said you can tie them to applications. Can we also tie them to users or groups of users?
Yes, so specifically for the VDI, so if you have a VDI environment, those categories or those groupings that we tie the virtual machine to could also be tied to the user logging in to the virtual machine. So instead to look at the virtual machine, attributes, we could look into the Active Directory membership of the user logging in. So we could also tie that into the user itself and create security policies based on the groups that the user is member of.
Okay, cool.
Did it answer your?
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
So I will just like to kind of summarize. No, I'm conscious I might be going over time here, but I will just. This is the slide that I usually use to explain microsegmentation and how we integrate with third parties, right? So if you think about not too nice metaphor, but if you think about a physical prison like Alcatraz, right? And you can think about you have different cell blocks and rows of prison cells. So what we can do with microsegmentation is basically isolate every virtual machine or every prisoner from every other prisoner, right? So even though they are on the same cell block or cell row, which means like the same VLAN or IP subnet, we could isolate every virtual machine from every other virtual machine by having like a dedicated prison cell. And when we do that, we can also, because the most challenging part by doing microsegmentation is to create those policies. And we can do that by having like a camera within the prison cell, so we can monitor the virtual machine and what it's trying to do, and thereby allowing what we expect for the application to do, right? But the most challenging part is when we have outside visitors or traffic between security zones. And this is where we need something that goes beyond what we do from a layer 4 stateful firewall perspective. And this is where Palo Alto will give us additional benefits to have like deep packet inspection and more sophisticated security measures.
Very good. And Palo Alto does, like you said, we do layer 4 with Flow, which is kind of like basic IP segmentation, IP filtering. And Palo Alto does application filtering. So Palo Alto recognizes more, and I think Patrick is going to tell a little bit more about that in a moment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, so we basically do TCP, UDP ports, right, and stateful firewalling of those. And this is where Palo Alto will do the additional deep packet inspection or go beyond the layer 4 headers to see what's actually inside the packet. And that's why I illustrate this with an X-ray machine, right?
Yeah, very good. Then Patrick, is it your cue then? Can you take it over?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
All right. I can hear you definitely very loud and clear.
Very good.
Oh, Marius, thank you for that. There we go.
So very good. So let me talk a little bit about Palo Alto Networks indeed, and also on our integration. So first of all, you see the picture here, scan me. If people think, what's that? It's my contact details. So no more physical business cards at the moment, but if you scan it, you have my contact details, phone number, etc. So for those that want, right?
Ideal.
Yeah. So first, I have some pictures, some analogies, etc. First, a little bit on Palo Alto Networks, the thing we want to do here. And why we exist. Palo Palo Alto Networks is a security company with the focus purely on security. And the thing we try to achieve here is to make every day more secure than the day before. And for that, our mission is also to be the cybersecurity partner of choice for everyone, to make sure that we can make every day more secure day. We need a few things for that. I will get back to that later. Things like making things simple, automation, etc. But first, zoom in a little bit on the Nutanix and Palo Alto integration. This will definitely bring a lot of automation, simplification, the enablement of doing micro-segmentation to prevent lateral movement. All the things that Marius just talked about are lined up here again, with easy and consistent management as well from a single point of view. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more in it later. First of all, why do we actually need all of this? I think this is pretty well known. I don't have to explain too much, but this is a view of the other side of the spectrum. This is the attacking side, and they've done it already for a long time, of course. This is a fully automated attack platform where multiple teams are trying to attack, to create attack strategies, etc. Fully automated, and they are able to very early adopt in these kinds of situations, because they can just keep on trying and make failures and optimize their systems until they finally succeed, right? They only have to succeed once and can very much do trial and error, where we, on the other hand, we can't do right. We have to, in whatever we do, we have to do it right away, because if we fail, and with we, I mean us, but also you and customers, everybody. We can't try too much. We have to be successful every time. So that makes it a little bit harder, but we do know how we should actually do it, right? So, and for that, I also have a few analogies to make sure that we are able to withstand this, and to make sure that we are not breached and can prevent all these kinds of things. First of all, we think you have to simplify the things a lot. If you compare it with this analogy, where you see the Eiffel Tower that took many years to build, has a lot of components. Once they started building, they couldn't change it anymore. You should compare this also into your data center, right? This is how we used to build data centers, very big, large investments, big networks, and build for the next 3 to 5, maybe even more years ahead, without too much change anymore. We should go more towards the way of working that you see on the right side, a pop-up house. Such a pop-up house is built in typically a few weeks, and even during the construction, the building phase, you can still change the design, and we should be able to do the same in the data center, I would say. Start off small. If you have a successful deployment that started out small, be able to grow it where needed, to very large sizes, adjust it where needed, and if it's needed to shrink again, be able to shrink it or to throw it away and go somewhere else, right? This is one of the things that we need to be able to do, and one of the buzzwords here, of course, everybody calls this being agile. You can also call it like that, agile, being flexible in your network environments. Second thing we think is needed is the sharing of data. All the items that you have in your network should be more like sensors. Your network security, your cloud security, your endpoint security, all kinds of enforcement points that you have here and there should be sensors and share the data. And then if something is detected in one area, the knowledge that's gained there should be used in another area in order to be able to prevent things happening from there as well. For that reasoning, we actually now and in the future, we would need a lot of data. In the past, those sensors would only send data from all the blocked events, from all the malware and those things we typically already do. But we see that we will need a lot more data. That's why it says here the good, the bad, and the ugly. Besides the bad and the ugly, we also would need all the good data, right? All the valid DNS requests, all the valid activity on endpoints, all the good activity, application activity that was not blocked but was supposed to happen in cloud environment. We need to know everything, and based on that, we can top it off with machine learning and AI to make decisions in the future on new behaviors, new connectivities, etc., whether that's expected to be good or to be bad, and to be able to real-time block it or allow it based on past experience, based on all that data that we have.
And the data, Patrick, where do you round up that data? So you collect the data on customer premises, or do you have a cloud offering for that?
So that typically reverts back to the first slide, that you should be able to very quickly adapt to the situation needed and effectively grow or shrink where needed. If you do that on site and you have boxes for that, then it will be very hard to grow it to future needs, especially if it needs to grow very fast. And we see that with AI and machine learning. If you have new algorithms, change algorithms, and you have to go through all the data to reprocess it, I would almost say, then at that moment you would need a lot of extra resources, at least temporarily, so a tenfold of the resource, etc. So typically use case there is to put it in the cloud. And then we choose to do it in the public cloud because we also think that we need data for many customers combined to even be better, to make better decisions for each and every customer individually in the end, right? To have better learning. So a lot of data is good, but we think we need even more than a lot of data. We need actually a tremendous amount of data. The more data that you have, the better decisions you can make, right? That's the whole goal. So public cloud it is for us. Yeah.
Very good.
I have to say we have different clouds, right? There's cloud locations in the US, there's cloud locations in Europe. I will not go into much detail here, but rest assured that for legislations in Europe, where we have GDPR and those kinds of things, where people are a little bit hesitant of sending all kinds of log data into a cloud, do talk to us because we can explain how we do it and what kinds of measures we took and put in place to be assured that everything is covered. Right? And then if you have a final analogy here, if you have all that data from all the sensors, and if you have all the intelligence that you should make a certain decision, I make this comparison with the boat. Imagine this boat has all the sensors and all the data needed to make a decision that it has to move left or right immediately, right now, then still this boat cannot do it. And that's just because of the reason that this boat has too many people needed to operate it, right? There's, I would say, at least 100, maybe even 200 people operating this boat. So if that decision needs to be made, it does cost some time to make this boat steer left or right. If you compare that to this boat, similar boat, also a sailing boat, but this boat can do it. If this boat has all the intelligence, all the data needed, that it makes a decision, I have to go left or right. Immediately, right now, it can do it. And that's because of a part of automation. This boat is fully automated. It only needs one person to operate it, only the captain. So based on all the automation here, it can make a very swift change, very quick direction change. And I think that's needed also in our network. So if I make the analogy, and this picture is far from complete, to be honest. So it lists a lot of our offerings and where we are, but not all of them. Here you can see that we are present in, of course, on-premise areas, data centers, as well as in public cloud, as well as in SaaS environments. We have our own, what we call Prisma Access, which you could see as a security as a service, network as a service, security as a service, say a next-gen firewall as a service for branch offices and remote users. But all of that, all of those environments connect up to this data lake that we just referred to, Matthijs, in the cloud. This is the data lake where all the data is going, where on top of this data lake we have the AI and the machine learning to make all of the decisions, whether something is good or bad. But this information here can be shared again into all of the areas that I mentioned before, to the on-premise equipment, to the endpoint solutions, to the cloud, to the SaaS, to the next-gen firewall as a service offering, etc. So that's where we think you need to be able to very quickly make decisions. If we see something in the SaaS environment happening, then even before it reaches the endpoint or the on-premise firewall, this one is already aware and is able to stop it before it reaches the on-site environment. And
nice.
As well.
It's good to see that both you and Marius have a thing with water and boats. So
very good.
Yeah. It must be a networking thing, right? Nice. No, but really a nice picture and a good overview indeed. So we're focusing on the VM and the private cloud part a little bit more today, right? But it's good to see how it's being fed with all the information.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're focusing here on the left bottom, and things that are missing out here is, for example, we also have security orchestration tooling, the XOR. automated response also. And there's more missing here, but a lot is here, I would say. So, but the picture would be too dense to put even more here. So, and for today, we're focusing here on the bottom left area, on the data center, where there's also virtualized environments. And first of all, I'm going to show a picture that I use already for a long time, but it's still very applicable, especially in this environments. We call it, by the way, the strata pillar. We have, because there's so much solution sets now, we also categorized it a little bit. So everything we talk about now is in the strata pillar. Everything in the cloud is actually in the Prisma pillar, and everything which has to do with the data lake and the AI, machine learning, the securing the future part is our Cortex pillar. So when we look at this picture, this is typically what we want to achieve in security policy, or actually what we want to reverse in security policy. Here you see a lot of things that are not allowed, things that we typically also did in security policies in the past, not Palo Alto Networks, but in the past before that. We would block all kinds of traffic like BitTorrent and file sharing and SSH, etc. All kinds of things that we didn't want, we tried to block. Doesn't work. You see in this picture, a lot of things are forbidden. The guy is just on his one-wheeler and it's not forbidden, right? So that's an analogy within a network. People will always find a way around it. The only applicable way, the best way to do it here is to replace the sign, and the sign should say only walking. And if the sign says only walking, then you're done. Then there's no dispute anymore. Then there's only walking. And the same goes into security policies. We are able to have security policy that say, for example, for certain machines, I want to have only this traffic. So now you don't have to think about blocking traffic anymore. Actually, you only have to think about what is the traffic that I would like to allow. And once you have that, all the other traffic is by default not allowed and thus blocked. This started off when I started at Palo Alto Networks on more than 8 years ago, a lot for internet-facing firewalls, especially perimeter firewalls. So people were then able to, instead of blocking all kinds of social media that they didn't want, people then could say, business said like, hey, I know my social media corporate security policy, which says we should be able to do LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, for example. And at that point, they could make a security policy that said, allow Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then they were done instead of blocking everything. And short time later, when more and more of our firewalls were also being used in the data center, this was actually even came to better use even there, I would say, because it's very much clearer even in the data center what kinds of applications you would like. Here it says a link server. But if you put, for example, if you put a SharePoint server in your data center, what kind of traffic do you want towards your SharePoint server? Well, that's obvious. You only want to have SharePoint traffic, of course. So you allow SharePoint traffic. And then going into the future, when you have a lot of rules, you see only 6 rules here. But imagine you have hundreds of rules, maybe even thousands. Some customers have that. If you have a policy set that allows all kinds of ports, in the end, you don't know what kind of applications you actually did allow by opening up those ports. If you have hundreds of rules or thousands of rules and you see these kinds of application-based rules, and in a few years' time you wonder like, can I get rid of this rule, yes or no? You can very easily say, oh, it's enabling Microsoft Link. Do we still use Microsoft Link? And maybe the answer is no, we don't use it anymore. So then you can get rid of this rule, which is harder to do if it's only port-based, right? And one thing further to further granularize these rules to make it more secure, we are able, let me go back here one slide. You see the source and the destinations. Those are typically address groups that could be IP addresses, IP ranges, etc. But those can be filled automatically, and that is very useful in those virtualized environments. Also with Nutanix, of course, where we can automatically add IP addresses of the host being based off the tags, and I think in Nutanix that's called categories of the machines. So based off the tag or the category of the machine, we can assign it into a certain dynamic address group that then being used in security policy to allow certain traffic, right? I come back to this in a few slides. I have a few slides more, and I will once more drill down into that one. If you then see at an overall structure picture how that would look like, you have the virtualized machines on the Nutanix platform. You have some physical machines. You have virtual firewalls to prevent anything bad happening in the lateral movement in the virtual environment without having to bring all the traffic, hairpin all the traffic into physical firewalls back and forth. So you can do that on the virtual machines and keep it local on the local nodes in the virtualized data center. And you still have, of course, possibility of having some physical firewalls for perimeter or connection into the data center towards the physical machines, etc. And you can all manage that from one central location, being Panorama, which then is connected into the orchestration systems, which is also like Nutanix, but also others that can feed the system with the dynamic items like the dynamic address groups based off the tags and the categories that the machines are in. Those work for the virtual machines, but we can also bring those dynamic address groups that are dynamically being filled towards the physical machines and also work with that, because it might be that you have some web servers in your virtual environment. Those web servers may have lateral communications with some database servers. You can handle that on a virtual machine, but maybe those web servers are accessible from the LAN or from external as well. So you can then also use those dynamic address groups on the physical firewalls as well. And if you deploy more web servers because you need more capacity, the rule base is automatically being updated and you don't need to make any changes in your security policies. So that makes you very flexible, makes the security policy very easy to understand, and that is a benefit for the security, because making complex things is not good for the security. We need to try to keep things simple, and that's also what we try to do here. Keep it simple and make sure that it adapts automatically on the fly when your environment adapts.
Cool.
Zoom in. Yeah, go ahead, Matthijs.
No, very cool. The dynamic part and especially the part where you make it simple to understand and only look at allowed applications makes it very hard. I remember in my early days I had a PIX firewall.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And it was a great machine, and it was really early days, right? It was behind a 128 kilobit line to the internet, so it was a long time ago. But it became so complex, and you had those rules, and you created a certain rule with a certain protocol, but you had no idea exactly what application it was again for after a couple of years. So
yeah, that's what happened. That was the whole evolution. Of course, that's when Palo Alto Networks was invented, and when we started. At the time, I would say everything we did at the time was good. So there's no bad things over there. It was great equipment that there was at the moment. But things change. Business demand changes. The needs change. The world is going very fast, and we need different toolings, and that's why we also talk about here Palo Alto Networks. That's where we got known for when we started this, right? This was typically what we envisioned at that time. So this is when I zoom a little bit in more onto the Nutanix part, and I will not spend too much time on this slide because I think Marius will also do that. But here you will see that if you're going to deploy it, even the deployment onto all of your Nutanix nodes is going to be automated using the provisioning and automation of Calm and the redirection of traffic of your component called the flow. So if Calm has deployed all the VMs on the Nutanix nodes, then here on the upper right, it says VM service, but it's actually a panorama, will push configurations, policies, licenses, etc. to all of those nodes. And then all the traffic that we need to inspect is being redirected by the other file part you see here. That's the flow component. Flow is going to redirect all the traffic to us. We are going to inspect it based on the policies you set and either allow it or block it. And if anything is updated, Panorama on the right upper corner is being notified of new machines within a certain category or within a certain tag, and those new configurations are automatically being pushed to the VMs on the nodes or to physical firewalls, might they be there as well in the environment. But I think this is also part where Marius will go in. This is once more the dynamic address group that I just mentioned twice already. This is just an overview to make it clear one more time. Your virtual environment might consist of many virtual machines with all kinds of categories and tags assigned. In your security policy, you can now use those categories and tags. So you can say, I have my web service, I have my database service, and I only want this kind of traffic in between going back and forth these machines. So, and then it doesn't matter whether you, if you have a blueprint or template to deploy more of such machines, more web servers, more database servers, or you move those servers around from one node to the other. It doesn't matter. If that happens and all of a sudden you have more web servers, the dynamic address group is automatically being updated with the new IPs, or IPs are removed if the machine is destroyed, and nobody needs to touch the security policy again. So the security policy is more becoming like a template of your whole environment, and it doesn't matter anymore how big the environment grows or shrinks, as long as the tagging and the categorization of the machines is good. They will match the security rules, and security will be applied. So the security guys can do the security part without interfering too much with the operational guys deploying machines and removing machines, and the guys that have to create the machines and to bring up the network, etc., can do their stuff without being limited by the security guys, because everything is now operating smoothly, automated, independently from each other. Right, that's the whole goal. So besides this, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, very nice to see, and especially the integration part where we can feed the system dynamically. Yep. We have some functionality for that as well. So we can run blueprints, for example, to spin up a web server, but also with a button to expand a application with additional web servers. Yep. And we also have the crossplay part where we automatically query the Nutanix private cloud for a behavior. And we can run tasks against the private cloud, example, to scale a web server if we see a certain amount of CPUs to show a web server. Right. And it's really cool that it automatically rolls through your whole infrastructure, including your security updates.
Yeah. So, and that's not the only part, but I wanted to zoom in on that part because I think also Marius is going to zoom in on that part as well. There's a lot more that we can, of course, automate. It's not the only thing. There's APIs, XML and REST APIs, everything that you actually would want to do in a firewall. You can automate it using the APIs. The dynamic address group we talked about, we have dynamic lists, we can auto tag machines. There's the bootstrapping part, of course, for virtual machines, for virtual firewalls that you can use by using column that automatically configurations are being applied to newly born firewalls, all those kinds of things. We can automatically take actions on certain log rules, and there's way more, which I'm not going to zoom in for today because that will be too much and I will eat up all time. For that we have a lot of online reference material, and there's a lot of information how to automate, what you can automate, how that works, etc. But before people go there, I would urge everyone to go first to the Nutanix site and the Palo Alto Networks site. I think in your site, Matthijs, you call it a solutions brief. Yes. Very often we call that technology brief, but you will easily find them if you look for the keywords Nutanix Palo Alto Networks. I would say start there. It gives a good overview of what we do and how we do it. And from there, you can go into the details of automation and what else can be done. And this is actually my last slide that I wanted to share here before I hand over to Marius to show it in real life, how it actually could work, right?
Perfect. All right, I'll put us back on screen. So thank you very much, Patrick, for your presentation, your quick introduction to Palo Alto. You were so friendly to give us some of the virtual machines and some licenses, and we implemented those in a demo center in Amsterdam together. And Marius has been playing around with it because he knows what he's doing. So Marius, you think you can give us a little bit of a walkthrough how it works, what you actually have to do to get it working, and what you have to do to get it to maintain it and operate it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just try to reshare my screen here. So
in the meantime, if there are any questions coming up, just put them in the chat. I will be happy to answer them all. We got all the knowledge in-house here today, so don't be shy.
Okay, one more thing, Matthijs. You will see them in the chat, or will I also see them in the chat?
If you look at the, I will see them in the chat definitely, so they're in comments, or you could look at them in the YouTube or Twitch stream, and that's where the public comments as well.
Because I'm not sure if I see it, I'm a guest user here. Yeah, good.
Right. Marius, take it away. Yes. It's all yours. I'll blow up the screen so we can definitely take a good look at the settings and the text in the browser.
Yeah, so I did actually zoom in, so hopefully you guys can see well now. So as we mentioned previously, right, when we create policies within the Nutanix flow, we actually do that by assigning policies between categories. So if you look into a security policy, and for this example, I have created a policy called Demo1 policy. It's basically where I specify that this is my inbound traffic to my application, and my application, sorry, consists of these two application tiers, right? And this is my outbound traffic for that. So you can see that the thing I am actually referring to is a category. So which means that it doesn't specify if it's 1 VM or 10 VM or 1,000 VMs. It basically says that every VM that's member of this group or has assigned this category will get this policy enforced, right? So if I look into my policy now, I can see that one virtual machine in a category called app tier demo 1db, and I do have another virtual machine in this category called app demo 1 web, right? And this is so one of the most challenging parts when you create micro-segmentation policy is to actually know how your application behaves. And I mean, like most customers I speak to usually come into a data center, and there are some existing application being deployed years ago, and nobody has access to documentation or really understands how the application communicates. And if you have visibility within the same, VLAN or IP subnet, so it's difficult to create these applications. So one of the benefits we have is that we will basically show you what other sources do I see communicating to my application, right? As we can see here. So this visibility part is what's really beneficial. And if I was to supposedly create a new policy, I actually had 3 different choices. You will only see 2 here, but it's one more as well. And the first thing is that we do have what we call isolation policies. And with an isolation policy, we think that if you are new to micro-segmentation and you would like to enforce a security policy in your environment, the first thing you would most likely do is to separate different environments from each other, right? So if I had a production, a development, or if I had multiple customers, the first thing I might do is just basically say that I would like to separate out that environment from this other environment. And this is what we call isolation policy. And isolation policy is always processed prior to application policy in order to simplify things, right? So it also means that if I have isolated 2 different environments, let's do a Dutch example like Ajax and Feyenoord, right? I want to make sure that there's absolutely no way I can circumvent that policy. And that's why we always process application policies before app policies. And so in a normal circumstance, I would then do, as we can see here, right? I have created an PCI environment. I basically said that all virtual machines that belongs to this non-PCI should never communicate with this PCI. And so this is the first thing that we will process. And then we will go into the different application policies. And we also have the one policy called VDI, where I can separate out different groups. And these are not based on the virtual machine itself. The VDI policy is based upon which user is logging in and what is the membership of that user in Active Directory. I can basically specify that this user belongs to marketing, right? And that's why we will enforce a marketing policy to that user. So the whole idea is that first I will start by creating a security policy, and that policy basically uses the categories, right? So if I go back to my categories,
Exactly.
so this is where I basically specify, right? So one virtual machine might have multiple categories assigned. And we do have some system-defined categories like environments, right? So if I go into environment, this is where I could create a new category called Ajax and one called Feyenoord and make sure that they never communicated. So I will see this is my policies that uses these categories or the category name environment. And these are the values I had created. And these are the VMs that's been assigned to these categories. So if I look into, for example, the task map, I can see that I have these different values assigned, and these are the VMs attached to that specific category value, right? So if I go back, or if I go in to create myself a new category, I basically go down the list and specify that I would create another one now called Ajax. Oh, sorry, misspelled. There we go. And another one then called Feyenoord, right? And then I could. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you're good with Dutch soccer clubs. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah. So then I would assign these to virtual machines, right? And that's how the virtual machine gets its policies. So basically, if I have pre-made these policies prior to creating the virtual machines, the only thing I need to do when I create virtual machines is to make sure they are mapped to these predefined categories, and then they will get their policy. Right.
Okay, and how do I map them? How do I map a virtual machine to a category?
Yes. So today we do this by basically going to so there's a manual and an automated way. We recommend doing this through the API, and you can do it on the blueprint. So if I have an application that I have automated in Calm, I could say that every time I create a new web server instance or I create this application, automatically assign these categories to the virtual machines.
Yeah.
Or I could also
sense.
do this manually, right? So I could basically go in, I could filter my VMs, search for specific VMs, and then go in and manually assign categories to them.
Okay.
So the other thing that you can do is that we will in a later release. I know this is not the place to talk about roadmap, but I will just reveal that we will in a later release have something called auto categorization, which means that I could create a policy saying that if I have VMs that includes the name web, they should automatically be assigned a category with web server, for instance, right?
Yes.
So we will have like an auto categorization feature coming in the upcoming releases.
Yes, exactly. So if you have your naming convention in order, that'll help you a lot, and you can automatically say that's a VDI desktop or a web server or terminal server or whatever, and automatically.
So we will look into different attributes to use, and there will be like an and or inclusion, right? So I could say that if I have web server as a name and it's on that network, then it should be assigned to this, right?
Oh,
so
that's really nice.
Yep. So that's
very good.
Plan.
And those categories that we create, they're also visible in Palo Alto.
Yes, that's a nice thing, right? So if I have, so what we are trying to do with these categories is to automate the security policy creation, right? So that I could basically create a policy saying that web could communicate to app, and then if I add 50 more web servers, I shouldn't have to go in to update anything, right? Because the policy is already there. The only thing I do is to add those VMs into the pre-made policy. And this is what we can do in Palo as well, right? So I could basically create myself a new address object. And this will then be a dynamic object, which means that if I create a new virtual machine that belongs to a specific category, if I add more virtual machines to it, we will tell Panorama the IP address of those added machines so that you don't have to update your policy. So if I now just create another policy, now let's do this might be wrong spelled, right? But anyway,
I think you're pretty spot on.
Yeah. So anyway, right? So basically, yeah. So
Works with it.
now I have demo 1. I could basically search for any category namings that here, right? So this basically lists off all my categories inside Prism Central. So I could now say that I will create an address object, an address group in Panorama that will include these or this specific object from the Nutanix, right? So yeah, the resolution is this.
Yep.
There we go. So now it basically says that this Feyenoord object will match these objects in Panorama, and this is how we can basically tie this together, right? And I could also go in here and review which IP addresses have we been told is members of this group, right? So if I would into the MH task web and 50 more VMs, you will automatically see 50 more IP addresses to this group. So the whole goal by doing this is to avoid having to manually update the policy every time we create new virtual machines or do some modifications, right? So that we can basically have it all automated. So sorry.
No,
it
makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
Just to go back to my security policy, right? This is an application I have created, and it's the task manager. So you can see now I'll just delete this task and I can create multiple tasks, right? So this is the policy, and if I go in just to update this briefly, I will just show you how the visibility part works from a Nutanix point of view, right? So first of all, we specify what traffic do we allow into the application and from the application, right? And just now you can see that inside the application now, it's basically, I basically allow TCP port 3306, and this is the visibility we have, right? To get further visibility, that's where we use Palo Alto and the packet inspection. And this is where I can select to redirect traffic to Palo. So the wording of this is actually quite misleading in my perception, because we could also do copy. So if I had a third party, or if I just wanted to copy the kind of traffic, I could also have a service chain that would just take a copy and send it off, but the other traffic will just pass through, right? So a service chain could do two different actions, either redirect or copy. So if I do a mistake now and just change this port, right, and save it and apply my policy, you will see that my application would probably stop working, right? You can see that. And the nice thing by the visualization, if you think back, it was like the camera I mentioned that we have inside the prison cell, right? That will basically tell us, yeah, it stopped working. But now it will tell me that it has discovered some traffic. It basically discovered that web communicates to DB on 3306. So now I just realized, I did a mistake in my policy, right? So I can go back and I can update by doing, this is inside the apps, right? And I could update this by saying, now I would do 06 instead. Do say, apply the policy now, and I should see that now my app is working again, right? So, yep. And so even though, right, we do get that visibility and we can show you which TCP port we are using, we still lack that application awareness and the app IDs and all that, functionality that Palo Alto brings. And this is what we can what we can achieve by now. I could update my policy, and I will basically say that I do not just want to do pure layer 4 firewalling. Now I would like to do also layer 7, right? So I can go into this and I can basically specify that now I would like to steer my traffic through Palo Alto, right? And this is how easy it is for us to basically include. So I could do this both on the incoming traffic, or I could do this on the outgoing traffic or internal to the traffic. Wherever I would like to go beyond my layer 4 stateful firewall, I could redirect selectively to Palo to give me that additional benefit. And then I would view that traffic in the Palo logs, and Palo would monitor that traffic for me and give me that additional benefits. And the policy I create will still be bound to the same objects, the same groupings, right? The same naming convention that I have in my Nutanix deployment.
Exactly. But basically, you're saying to the system now, don't touch anything, don't block anything, just give it all to Palo Alto, and they will take care of it. They will monitor, they will filter, they will do everything that they're smart enough to do.
Yes.
And they do it on an application level, so they might not even, or they might look into package. So if you have port 80, some things over port 80 might work, or other things over port 80 might not work.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, an example for me would be that if it's SQL, database traffic, right? Do you want to, rely on the TCP port, or do you want to see that it is a, legitimate, SQL, query, right? Do you want to have that additional application level of protection? So I know this went really quick now. I'm just conscious that we are soon approaching the hour.
Can I add one thing, Matthijs and Marius?
Yeah, sure thing.
Sorry?
I would like to add that I think it was clear, just to add it one more time, that it's not only application visibility, right? So we do see the app, and we can indeed see also all the sub-functions of the app. Just not the app, but also take the very easy example of Facebook. Then we also can see Facebook Mail, Facebook Chat, Post, etc. But also within the traffics, take for example the SQL traffic that Marius just mentioned. We can also, of course, block attacks, the vulnerabilities with the threat prevention. We can prevent malware. We can do URL filtering, data DLP. All kinds of things. And even if you want to go that far, you can make custom apps and custom app IDs. If, for example, in the SQL traffic, because we can see in all the packets, if you want to say like, okay, a lot of things are allowed, but I don't want anyone to issue the command drop DB, for example, make a custom signature that says like, if I see a command drop database, reset the packet, stop the packet, drop the packet, don't let it go on, right? So you could go very far.
Absolutely. So I think it's, I think we really, work nicely together by us giving the possibility to have, categories assigned to the VM and giving the microsegmentation functionality, and you would expand that functionality by giving us application awareness and application ID filtering.
Cool. Marius, you're finished with the demo, or you have something else you would like to show us?
No, I think that's more or less what I had in mind. I was it went pretty fast to try to stay within the hour. So please, if there's any interest, please let me know, and I'm happy to have follow-ups if there's specific scenarios that one might like to discuss further.
Yes, so that's also, if you have any questions, you want to speak to Patrick, Marius, or anyone else from Nutanix or Palo Alto, just leave a comment under the video or below the show notes. I will reach out to you. Patrick already shared his contact details. Marius and myself can be found at Nutanix, so Matthijs at Nutanix.com, and I think Marius.Holmsen at Nutanix.com.
Yeah, actually, it's actually easier. It's just Marius at Nutanix.com.
Oh, same here then. Perfect. So drop us an email if you wanna know more, or you want a more extensive demonstration of the capabilities of the joint solution. Patrick, Marius, anything else to add before we're gonna wrap it up?
No, I think we're close also to something completely different. Very much people are close to summer holidays, I would say. So I would thank everybody for their attention today. As Marius said, if there's any questions, do reach out. Possible for everybody, of course. But for now, for those that go on summer holidays, do enjoy and see you back later. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Matthijs and Marius.
No, thank you for joining us, Patrick. And it was great having you here. It's good to see that we have a broad ecosystem of partners as mature as you guys have products and really extend our solution with way more capabilities than we ever could build in ourselves. Marius, anything from you to add?
Yeah, no, actually, I will just like to say that I really appreciate being on. I know this is usually a Dutch broadcast, so apologies for forcing you guys to speak English, but I really appreciate being on, and I wish you all a nice summer. And if there's any follow-ups, please let me know, and I'm happy to assist in any way possible.
We will definitely do that. Yeah. Also from my side, very happy holidays. This is the last broadcast for the summer holidays, so we'll be back in 4 to 5 weeks with a new show because Bart is already on PTO and I'll be going late next week. So then we'll have a 4 to 5 week break in between. Patrick and Marius, thank you very much again for joining us, and till next time, I'm going to end the broadcast then.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.